Chapter 15. After I left Liz, I did a search on my phone for her cousin Warren. A whole lot of crap came up. To my dismay, he hadn't even been a California lawyer. He had been barred in the Midwest. At one point, Warren had been part of a political machine in local elections. Got disbarred for stealing clients' money, failing to show up at hearings, and bad legal advice. Warren blamed his lapse in judgment due to his dual addiction to alcohol and gambling. The bar didn't care. Yanked his license and said that his horrendous acts were absolutely inexcusable. I shook my head. I wanted to go back and warn Liz. However, I was sure that it would be pointless. Liz knew who her cousin was and apparently didn't care. I then got into my car and headed toward Tenant Liberty's office. When I arrived, no one was there. I looked at my watch. It was exactly 10 o'clock. I sent Paul a text saying that I was waiting for him. After a few minutes had passed, I received a text from Paul. It read, "Sorry, can't meet. I'm at the doctor's office. Had an emergency." I wrote back, "Paul, I can meet you at your doctor's. Just tell me where and I'll see you then." Paul texted, "Sorry, can't do that. My doctor won't allow it." "Who's your doctor?" I asked. "None of your business," Paul answered. "Why won't you tell me the name of your doctor?" I asked. "Because it's personal," he answered. "Personal how?" I asked. "Just as," he answered. "You know, Paul, I'm tired of you avoiding me." "No avoidance. Things came up. Can't help it." "All right." Taking an early lunch and getting some figs and onions with chicken. "Do you want me to save some for you?" "Gross," Paul answered. "Never heard of such a bizarre combination. Gotta bounce now. Doctor wants to discuss my results now. I'll let you know when I'm in the office." I shook my head and walked to my car. That asshole. Why wouldn't he tell me the name of his doctor? What was so personal about that? On the flip side, it could mean that he was being treated for something embarrassing. I wiped my brow. I needed to stop focusing on Paul's drama. Instead, I needed to find out whether Samantha's clue about figs and onions was something real or fabricated. Liz didn't know what I was talking about and Paul didn't seem to know either. I was stuck and needed something so that I could move forward. I rubbed my belly. I was hungry. I got in my car and headed downtown. When I arrived at Lanita's Nibbles, the eatery was packed with customers. I ordered a soy hot chocolate and a bagel with scrambled eggs, Swiss cheese, bell peppers, and tomatoes. I smiled. Both my drink and sandwich were perfect. A 20-something man walked up to my table. He was wearing a long-sleeve cotton burgundy shirt and blue jeans. "Are you a commuter?" he asked. "Yes, I am," I replied. "How can I help you?" The man pulled some papers and handed them to me. "You've been served." My face winced. "Served with what?" I asked. "With a lawsuit," the man answered. He then turned away and walked to the street. I peered at the papers. It was a small claims lawsuit from my no-good former client Suzanne. Claimed that I had breached my contract by not finding her daughter. Wanted a full refund of my fee. I wanted to scream. I couldn't believe that Suzanne had filed a frivolous lawsuit against me. She had no basis whatsoever for her claim. I had done everything right. In fact, I even had given her some free time on her case. How could she be so ungrateful? For some reason, she couldn't grasp the fact that some people couldn't be found for various reasons. I pulled out my laptop from my bag and turned it on. I then started drafting a response to Suzanne's lawsuit. Chapter 16. Things were looking bad for Liz. In the morning, the police had issued a press release saying that they had found the gun that had allegedly killed both Calvin and Manuel. Their search for gun registrations shows that Liz was the owner. The police also said that they were now investigating the past death of Liz's first husband, Wendell Polroy, who had died 12 years ago in a motorcycle collision. They implied that the crash might have been the result of foul play on Liz's part. And over the last few days, I hadn't made any progress on Liz's case. I had texted Brad several times for a meeting and he claimed to be always busy. A couple times, I had visited Tenant Liberties looking for him and I was told that he wasn't there. On top of this, Liz's disbarred lawyer cousin Warren was a pain in the ass. He was constantly calling about the status of Liz's case. And as for Liz, she had been denied bail this morning. The judge had deemed Liz to be a flight risk and a danger to the community. Right now, I was in the visitors' room at the women's jail. I was waiting to see Liz. After about 20 minutes had passed, a correctional officer came out with Liz, who was clad in a red jumpsuit with ankle cuffs. After the officer exited the room, she sat down on a wooden stool. I glanced at Liz and pointed to her left eye, which was black and blue. "What the hell happened to you?" "Some bitch punched me because I wouldn't give her my grilled cheese sandwich," Liz answered. "Are you okay?" I asked. No, I'm not okay. In jail with a bunch of crazy bitches. And when I asked the goddamn guard to give me makeup to cover my black eye, she laughed at me and said it wasn't allowed. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you should be, Liz hissed. If you had found something to exonerate me, I wouldn't be here. Give me some time. Things should come together soon. Yeah, I hope so. Do you have anything new for me? I sighed. I have a couple of questions. What? Liz asked. Did you hear about the cops' press release saying they were investigating the death of your first husband? Liz winced. There's nothing to investigate. Wendell died in a motorcycle accident. A big rig killed him. End of story. Did you know the big rig driver? Hell number. I had nothing to do with Wendell's death. Did you get a settlement from his death? Liz nodded. Yeah, I did. The big rig driver fell asleep and lost control of the vehicle. How much did you get? I asked. What the hell does this have to do with anything? Liz asked. Because the cops might think that the amount might have been a motive to kill him. Liz glared at me. It was a goddamn accident. And that's it. I loved Wendell. I would never do anything to hurt him. Then why did you lie when I asked about your finances? Liz's face became twisted. What the hell are you talking about? You told me you inherited money from your aunt, I said. I did. What's your point? Your cousin Warren told me that you have only one aunt and that's his mother who is very much alive. Liz shook her head. The aunt I inherited my money from was my great-aunt Lily May. She's on my mother's side and was my grandmother's sister who never married. Warren knows nothing about her because he's related to me through my father's side. I clasped my hands. All right. Then how come you didn't tell me about your money from your first husband's accident? Liz frowned. Because it wasn't relevant, and you didn't ask. That's a bullshit answer, I blurted. It's the goddamn truth, Liz retorted. And how I got my money is irrelevant. All you need know is that I didn't kill Wendell. And I didn't kill Calvin. And I didn't kill Manuel. End of story. I sighed. All right. Since your bail hearing went bad today, are you going to get a lawyer? Liz grimaced. I've got my cousin Warren advising me. Told me before the hearing that I'd probably be denied bail. So, it wasn't a surprise. Trusting your cousin is really bad idea. He's disbarred. Plus, he's from another state. He never even practiced law in California. Criminal law is criminal law. Doesn't matter what your state you're in. Back in the day, Warren handled a lot of criminal matters. Erica, he knows what he's doing. I shook my head. Liz, I did some checking and found out the public defender's office can handle your case for free. Because your accounts are frozen, that means that you're indigent. So, you're eligible for services. That's not what was I told, Liz replied. Whoever told you that, gave you really bad information. All you need to do is ask for a public defender at your next court hearing. It's really easy. Can't let those bastards represent me, Liz scowled. They'll get me convicted. The public defender's office has some of the best lawyers in the county. I'm sure you'll be assigned a seasoned lawyer. Liz shook her head. Season my ass. I don't trust any of them. Not especially with Linda Groombell being the head of the office. What's wrong with her? She's been with the office for over 20 years. And she was screwing my Calvin on and off for the last 4 or 5 years. I groaned. I didn't know. Then the public defender's office can conflict out and you can get a court-appointed attorney. I don't want a court-appointed attorney, Liz seethed. With my luck, I might get one who screwed Calvin in the past. I trust my cousin Warren to advise me and no one else. I wanted to tell Liz that her jealousy was making her paranoid. Instead, I said, I give up. Use your disbarred cousin and if you get convicted, blame it on him. No, I will blame it on you, Liz replied. You need to find real evidence that will exonerate me. And you need to do it, now. I sighed. I wanted to yell at Liz. Instead, I decided to keep my temper in check. Liz, I've got to go now. I'll let you know when I have an update on your case. Great. Just find something because being in jail is driving me nuts. Chapter 17. While I was enjoying a nice cup of mint soy hot chocolate at Lanita's, I scanned my email on my phone. There was nothing worth responding to. I then checked out Samantha's blog. I was pleasantly surprised with the response to my comment. It read, "Meet me on the Silicon Valley northbound train between noon and 2, today." I glanced at my watch. It was almost 20 minutes to noon. The nearest train station was about a 10-minute drive. Great, I'd make it in plenty of time. I typed a response. See you in a bit. I put my phone into my jacket's left pocket and finished my drink. I then gathered my belongings and headed toward my car. My phone vibrated. I pulled it out from my pocket and saw a text from Paul. "I'm at the office now. Can you meet at noon?" I texted, "Sorry, can't meet. Going to meet someone at the train station. How about later?" "Will 3 work for you?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. "Great. See you then," Paul wrote. As I was about to put my phone down, it rang. I picked it up and answered. Liz's cousin Warren said, "Did you see the shit the police put out about Liz?" "Yeah, I did." "It's horrible," I answered. "Liz ought to sue their asses for their goddamn lies." "Yeah, she should," I said. "Can we talk later?" "I've gotta run because I have a meeting." "Alright. No worries. I can call you later." "Better yet, maybe we can meet later for lunch," I said. "Sounds good," Warren replied. "I don't know what kind of food you like, but there's this place that makes the best roasted chicken. They serve it with figs and onions. It's out of this world." "Sounds delicious," Warren said. "But I don't know if this restaurant can match my father's cooking. My father used to make the best chicken that was utterly scrumptious with figs and onions." I almost dropped my phone. Samantha said in her blog that the killer loved figs and onions. Did that mean that Warren was the killer? My voice went down an octave. "You've got me hungry," I lied. "Forget the restaurant. Maybe I can visit your father's house for dinner sometime." Warren's voice faltered. "My father died a few years ago after a long bout with Alzheimer's. But Liz's roasted chicken with figs and onions is almost as good. When she gets out, maybe we can convince her to make us a meal." Oh my God, I couldn't believe that Liz had lied to me about not knowing anything about figs and onions. "Sorry about your father," I said. "Thanks," Warren mumbled. "I need to go now, or I'll be late. I don't like to sell and drive." "All right. Call me when you're done." "Sure thing," I answered. "Great. Talk to you later." I hit the end button and got into my car. I turned on my ignition and headed to the train station. When I arrived, the train station was packed with folks. An eclectic mix of chatter in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Hindi permeated the air. There were several signs in various languages providing the number to the local suicide prevention line. The Chatelain County Transit Agency had the 3rd highest rate of suicides by train in the country. Before the recession, there were only a handful of suicides per year. Since the recession, the number had skyrocketed. Last year, over 30 folks had done it. All ages. A middle-aged man had been kicked out of his home after losing his job of 25 years. A young woman who had graduated top of her class in college was tired of all of job rejections. And then there were those who had run out of unemployment benefits, had no job prospects whatsoever, and had no friends and family to help them. To them, suicide was their only option. I wiped my brow and scanned the crowd waiting for the train. Most looked unhappy and stressed, but no one looked like they had given up on life. I looked for Samantha and didn't see her. I approached a few folks and flashed Samantha's photo from my cell phone. To my chagrin, no one had seen her. I purchased a $9 ticket for the Silicon Valley northbound train and waited for its arrival. After a few minutes, a 3-car train arrived on the platform. I boarded the first car. It was packed. I grabbed the overhead bar for support. I wedged myself between folks while looking for Samantha. To my disappointment, she wasn't in the car. I walked into the next section of the train and Samantha was nowhere to be found. When I reached the final car of the train, I saw a bent-over elderly woman with a walker. She slowly walked to the middle of the car and shouted with unsteady voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry to bother you. My name is Nancy and I was a nurse in the Vietnam War. My grandson is at the airport. He needs $76.03 to pay for his bags. I wish I could give him the money, but I can't because I don't get my Social Security check until the 1st of the month. His father lives with me. He lost his job last year and he won't get his unemployment check for another week. If my grandson doesn't get on the plane, my son will lose custody. I can't let that happen. My grandson means everything to me. I hate to ask, but if you could help me with anything, I'd appreciate it. I can pay you back as soon as I get my Social Security check." Several passengers went up to the old woman and handed her fistfuls of dollar bills. One middle-aged man gave her a $20 bill. The lady smiled with a crooked grin and took the money with her hands, which were covered in white linen gloves. My eyes bulged. Nobody wore white linen gloves anymore. It had to be Samantha dressed up in one of her old lady outfits. She was obviously wearing white gloves to disguise the youthfulness of her hands. I wanted to scream, "You thief, stop taking these people's money." Instead, I remained silent because I didn't want to scare her. I stared at Samantha for a few minutes and watched her continue to take money from the crowd. I was furious. How could she take advantage of folks who probably needed the money for their rent, food, and electric bill? I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around. It was Samantha. She was dressed in jeans, sweater, and jacket. "Are you looking for me?" she asked. I nodded and felt the heat rising to my cheeks. How could I have accused that poor old woman of such malicious acts? I turned to Samantha and said, "I'll talk you in a minute." I walked toward the lady and handed her $1. I mumbled, "Ma'am, I hope this helps." The lady smiled and thanked me. I then walked back to Samantha. Samantha shook her head and whispered, "I wouldn't have done that." "Why?" I asked. "Because it's a scam," she replied. My face became twisted. "She dresses up like old ladies like you?" Samantha shook her head. "No, she's old, but she has no son or grandson. Uses that story at least once a month to get extra money. Sometimes, she nets as much as 200 a day. And she's never been caught?" "Not yet. She changes up her story a bit and doesn't do her spiel on the same drained wise. Besides, who's going to want to turn in their grandma? It just wouldn't be right." I sighed. Perfect, an old age con artist. "Can we talk about figs and onions?" Samantha winced. "Not here. Too many people." "Then where?" I asked. "At the next train stop," Samantha answered. "We need some privacy to talk." We stood in silence until the train pulled up to the Chatelaine downtown exit. When the doors opened, we departed the train. There were about a couple dozen people milling about in the station. Samantha pointed to an empty bench. "Let's sit there," she said. We walked to the bench and sat down. "In your blog, you said you know who the killer is." Samantha nodded. "So, who is it?" I asked. "Told you that the killer likes figs and onions." I shook my head. "That's a clue, not a name." "What the killer's name?" "Don't feel safe telling you that." "Come on, Samantha. Stop playing games. Just tell me." "Can't." "Why not?" "Because they could come after me." "It's on your blog." "They already know it's you." "That's why I didn't give a real clue." "What the hell? The figs and onions clue aren't real?" "It's just a tweaked version of the clue so they couldn't link it to me." "What's the real clue?" "The killer doesn't like figs and onions anymore." I frowned. What does that mean? It just means they don't like them anymore. Why? Because it made them sick? Just they wanted change. The food they eat? I asked. Samantha shook her head. It's not food. What do you mean? There's a ton of recipes on figs and onions. Think again. About what? Samantha tugged at her jacket's right sleeve and pulled it up. Her wrist displayed a tattoo bracelet with tiny diamonds. I looked her tattoo and then back at Samantha's face. The killer had their figs and onions tattoo removed. Exactly, Samantha replied. Why? I asked. I don't know, Samantha answered. Who removed it? I asked. Don't know, she replied. How do you know it was removed? Because it was used to be on their chest and it's not anymore. So, the killer's a man? Yes, Samantha nodded. Can you tell me anything else about him? No, I can't. Is he old? Is he young? Samantha sighed. Can't tell you. Do you have his picture? Samantha twitched. No, I don't. I could tell from her body language that she was lying. Let me see his picture, I demanded. Told you I don't have it. Let me check your phone, I ordered. You're not touching my phone, Samantha hissed. Look, this isn't a game. My client's life is at stake. She's been arrested for crimes that she didn't do. You gotta tell me who it is. I can't, Samantha whined. Samantha replied as she looked at her watch. The overhead sign for the next train flashed. Northbound Silicon Valley will arrive in 2 minutes. I have to go now. My mind suddenly flashed to the bandage that had peeked out from Warren's sweater. The bandage that he had kept scratching. Oh my God, the bandage must have been to cover Warren's removed tattoo. Liz's cousin Warren killed them, right? I asked. Samantha's eyes widened, but she said nothing. If you don't tell me now, then we'll be forced to subpoena you, I said firmly. Samantha shrugged her shoulders and turned to walk toward the boarding area for the train. Shots rang out. I ducked my head under my bag for cover. Screams were heard throughout the station. I turned and looked at Samantha. She was lying sprawled out on the ground with blood gushing from her head and backside. Chapter 18. I collapsed next to Samantha's body. I was too afraid to move. Maybe if I were lucky, Warren would think I was dead. more shots rang out. From the corner of my eye, I could see two more passengers on the ground. One was grabbing his chest and the other was missing her face. Vomit rose in my throat. I wanted to release it, but I couldn't. I didn't want Warren to know that I was still alive. I forced myself to swallow the incessant bile. I visualized that I was glued to the ground and there was nothing that could remove me. I replayed this image in my head, so I wouldn't move. After 30 or so seconds, I heard about a dozen footsteps. A female voice shouted, "Drop your weapon now." A voice yelled, "That isn't gonna happen." Warren's voice sounded unnatural, like it was muzzled or behind cloth. A male police officer shouted, "Surrender, now." Warren yelled, "I'd rather die." The female cop shouted, "We want you alive." My memory will always be alive because I just emailed it to the media, replied Warren. What do you mean by that? The female cop asked. I sent them truth, he replied. Now, it's time for the end. You don't want that to happen. I do, he said. Several shots were fired. Screams were heard throughout the station, and then there was one split second of silence. A female cop cleared her throat and said, "The suspect is dead." People cheered. I looked up and saw Warren lying face down in the middle of the station. Next to him was his cell phone and gun. A burly cop turned Warren over. He was wearing a ski mask. The cop yanked it off. My eyes glazed over. Oh my God, it wasn't Warren. It was Paul from Tenant Liberties. The man whom I had lusted over. How could I have been so stupid? My stomach churned, and bile rose to my throat. Unlike the first time, I let the vomit come out. Pieces of undigested food and liquid spilled out of my mouth. I couldn't stop until my stomach was completely empty. 6 months had passed since the media had received Paul's rambling diary of 7,500 words. It was posted on numerous websites. So far, it had been downloaded more than 500,000 times. In one excerpt, Paul blamed Calvin for his grandmother's death back in 2003. I can't stand the eviction man Calvin Norwich. If it weren't for him, Grandma Nita would be alive. For 10 years, she lived in Street Christie Senior Apartments. Because my grandma needed help, my Uncle Jim moved in. He would get her medicine, cook, and clean the apartment. Now, Uncle Jim wasn't a perfect man. He'd been in jail for taking and dealing drugs. But he was very good at taking care of my grandmother. Plus, he was getting up in age. who was going to hire a 52-year-old ex-con? Nobody. Taking care of my 83-year-old grandmother for a free room was a good deal. Everything was all good until they had that annual inspection. The manager wanted to make sure that my grandma was taking care of her place. Uncle Jim cleaned up everything well. Grandma Nita was proud of the Uncle Jim's work. When the manager came by, he checked out the rugs, kitchen, bathrooms, and bedrooms. In my Uncle Jim's room, he found a bag of marijuana. Uncle Jim told the manager that his marijuana was legal because it was medical marijuana. The manager didn't care. He said it was a violation of federal law to possess marijuana in subsidized housing. 3 days later, Grandma Nita got an eviction notice from the law offices of the eviction man. She pleaded with the eviction man to let her stay. Told him she knew nothing about the marijuana. The eviction man wouldn't listen. Said the marijuana violated the lease and it didn't matter that it wasn't hers. Uncle Jim then told the eviction man that he would move out. The eviction man told him that they both had to leave because it was the law. Grandma Nita tried to find help. She and my uncle found a free lawyer to help them fill out some court paperwork. But the lawyer wouldn't take her case. Told them that they had represent themselves in court. I wanted to help, but I couldn't. I was sharing a room with my girlfriend and I wasn't working. My mom was dead, and my dad was locked up in prison for some bogus crime. When Grandma Nita and Uncle Jim went to court, they told their story. But the judge wouldn't listen. He only cared about what the eviction man told him, that Grandma Nita had violated the lease. So, she and my uncle had to leave. Because of the eviction man, the court threw my Grandma Nita and Uncle Jim out of the apartment. Uncle Jim was able to get into a rehab place. He stayed there for a while until he got in trouble and went back to jail. But no one would help my grandma because she had an eviction on her record. She even tried renting a room, but folks didn't want to rent to an old woman. So, she wound up on the streets of Chatelain County. 5 days later, my grandma died from cold exposure. They said that she couldn't handle the cold. God, I hate the eviction man. If it weren't for him, my grandma would be alive. Why did he have to be so damn evil? Why couldn't he give my grandma a second chance? Damn him for his evilness. In another passage, Paul talked about his fondness for figs and onions. I remember when I was a little boy, I used to go to Sydney's place where Grandma Nita was a cook. Her specialty was roasted chicken with figs and onions. It was so good. They even did a story in the newspaper about her cooking, Because my grandma died, I wanted to do something to remember her by. I wish I could cook like her. But I can't. My food never tastes the same. But one thing I knew that I could do was almost as good. A month after my grandma died, I got a tattoo of figs and onions on my chest. So, my grandma will always be with me in my heart. In another part, Paul talked about his obsession with Calvin Norwich. Every week, I go to the courthouse and check out the number of people who've lost their homes because of the eviction man. Some are old like my grandma Nita. Others are mothers with kids. And some lost their jobs and just couldn't keep up with the rent. It's so unfair. Why doesn't the eviction man have any compassion? Sometimes I wish he'd just die so that the evictions would all end. Paul then discussed when he joined Tenant Liberties. I met this cool guy, Manuel. He's started this org called Tenant Liberties. They are going to stand up to the eviction man. They are tired of him throwing people out of their homes for no reason. What's even better is that Manuel is going to give me a job. I've been trying to do the graphic artist thing, but it's hard making money. And my part-time job is so boring. I am tired of being a guard for the hotel. I need something that will make a difference. And this gig will. I can't wait until I start. Yay! Paul then wrote about meeting Samantha. I met this really cool chick. Her name is Samantha. She's doing community service. The cops blamed her for some crap she didn't do. I really like her and she's so beautiful and perfect. She looks like my grandma when she was younger. She has her smile and eyes. Plus, when I talking to her, I can hear my grandma's voice. And then when she dresses up like an old lady, she looks exactly like my grandma. It's as if my grandma has been reincarnated. It's so eerie. But you know what? I totally dig it. It just means that Samantha and I were meant to be together. Paul talked about problems he had with Samantha. I can't believe that she slept with the eviction man. She knows how much I hate him, but that didn't stop her. Why? I don't understand. She also lied that she stopped seeing him. I know that's not true because I saw them meeting at the hotel. You know, the one I used to work for right away. I want to end it with Samantha. But I can't. I love her too much. Plus, if I stop seeing her, I won't have my grandma anymore. I need Samantha. She is my grandma's soul. Her essence. Her being. In another chapter, Paul wrote about his dilemma with Manuel. Manuel is such a bastard. He was with my Samantha. How could he sleep with her? He knows she's mine. I hate him so much. I want to quit my job. But I can't. I need it to pay my rent. And if I quit, I'll become homeless. The hotel isn't hiring. In fact, it lets some people go. And I checked other places and they are all downsizing. Goddamn recession. Why does Samantha have to be like my grandma in every way? Grandma Nita used to have a lot of men when she was younger. Sometimes she'd see 3 or 4 men at the same time. I guess I shouldn't blame Samantha. She's just being my grandma. Instead, I need to figure out a way, so I will get what I want. A month later, Paul wrote, Samantha just told me that she's losing her place. The eviction man thinks she has a different name. He doesn't know it's her. I can't let Samantha die like my grandma. She already died once. Dying twice isn't fair. I've got to do something. I've come up with the perfect plan. I'm going to kill both of them. The eviction man and Manuel. And you know what? The cops won't know it's me. Instead, I'll blame it on the eviction man's wife. I know where she lives. A few days ago, I broke in. It was easy. Tripped the alarm and then went in the bathroom. Found a gun in a drawer. Might belong to the eviction man or to his wife. Also, found her hairbrush, which had strands of her dyed blonde hair. Put the hair and gun in a plastic bag. Going to plant the hair in the hotel room and in Manuel's house. Nobody will know but me. So perfect. And then after the eviction man and Manuel are gone, I'll have Samantha forever. She'll keep her place. And I'll be the head of Tenant Liberties. Oh my God, I feel so good. The other thing I'm doing is getting my tattoo of figs and onion removed. Doing it on Saturday. Doctor said it would take a few sessions. But it will come off. Don't want anyone to trace anything back to me. Taking too long to remove tattoo. Decided instead to get something on top of it. I got a new tat. It's a heart with chain. The chain represents the chain on my heart that won't be released until I kill Manuel and the eviction man. But I'm not ready to do it, yet. Got to wait until the perfect time. Plus, Samantha claims she heard me talking me in my sleep about killing them. Told her that it was crazy. Lied and said I would never hurt them. I think Samantha believed it. So, I have nothing to worry about. Then again, she could be my grandma reincarnated and know that I'm lying. If she is, she knows I'm doing it for her. I'm going to save her from dying, again. Can't believe it, I did it. Killed the eviction man at the hotel. Did it for my grandma, Samantha, and all the other people that he evicted. I'm a hero. Yes, indeed, I am. God, I feel good. Did it again. Manuel is gone forever. He had to be killed because what he did to Samantha. Now, I'm a hero twice. Yes, I am. Yay! But I can't keep the gun. Too dangerous. Found the perfect place for the gun. Broke in the evictions man's garage at his house and put in it a storage box. Wiped my prints clean. So now, everyone will think the wife did it. The eviction man's wife is now in jail. Everyone thinks she killed him and Manuel. Good. She deserves to be in jail. She was getting rich from the eviction man's work. Now, I'm a hero the third time. That stupid private investigator chick keeps trying to talk to me. Saw her at Manuel's funeral. I wish she'd go away. And then there's Samantha. She wrote something on her blog. She said the killer likes figs and onions. I hope to God that no one thinks that it's me. But, how could they? My old tat is covered with new one. So, no one will ever know. Damn it. Can't take it anymore. Samantha wrote on her stupid blog that she was going to the train station. Then I got a text from that PI chick that she's meeting someone at the train station. Has to be Samantha. Have to do something. Can't let her talk to her. Plus, now I know that Samantha can't be my grandma. Grandma would never do this to me. No, Samantha must be the devil. She has to die. And with her, I will have to die and then join Grandma. I have no choice. But before I go, I will let the media know the truth. The people must know everything. The eviction man's killing my grandmother. Samantha pretending to be my grandma when she's not. And then, Manuel who betrayed me. Yes, now time for the truth. Now, I am a hero again for the fourth time. That was Paul's last entry in his diary. It made me feel awful. If I had known that Paul was so unstable, I could have prevented Samantha's death. Why couldn't I see the truth? As for my former client Liz, her life is still in flux. After being released from jail, she took the February bar. To her chagrin, she failed it again, the 19th time. To my amazement, she decided to take the bar again. On top of this, she's also still battling the IRS. She's hoping that she'll be able to reach a settlement over Calvin's business taxes. It will probably cost her the house and the bulk of her savings. At least, Liz still has a job with a local nonprofit. And the police decided to stop investigating the death of her first husband. As Warren, he had worn a bandage due to contracting a case of poison oak from repossessing a car that had been buried in the owner's bushes. Thank God, I hadn't gotten poison oak from him. On a different note, he's thriving in his car repo business. On top of this, he's still illegally advising Liz about her legal problems on the side. Daryl's job with the census ended about a month ago. He's just completed a final round of interviews with a Silicon Valley startup specializing in tech solutions for 40-somethings and older. It sounds like he'll be a perfect fit. As for me, I lost my case to Suzanne in small claims court. The judge ordered me to refund 1/2 of my contract fee to Suzanne. That was about $1,500. We worked about our payment plan, $100 a month. Right now, I'm working a couple of small cases. Nothing major. However, I'm hoping I'll land something big soon. And if I don't, I'll keep trying until I do.